cryptocurrencies are falling today. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Bitcoin down to 25,000, Ethereum down to 1,650, XRP down to 48 cents, and two major things have happened. Now, you might think that the SEC did something crazy yet again, and let me tell you that that's not the case. First of all, we had the FOMC meeting. Now, unfortunately, it was pretty late at night. I believe this decision came at 2 a.m. for me, so I was not waiting up for it, as I was not going to have any crazy trades open. Okay, I was actually staying up for it, but not making any video about it. But you can see they finally halted the rates. As you can see, it went from 5.25% to 5.25%. You can't actually see it, but it did. Now that I've refreshed it, you can actually see what happened. And now we're starting to see some different things, like the Chinese industrial production numbers, etc. I don't think they matter too much. What matters more is the ECB numbers, which are going to be coming out later today. But again, about all that we shall see. I believe, though, that these rates together / mixed with the economic projections, so what the Fed was basically saying about what's going to happen in the future, might have made the market a little bit bearish. Then again, over on Twitter, a lot of people are mostly looking at three things, which is the SEC pressure, Mr. CZ, and actually, is it three things? I mean, you can see over on Twitter, there's a lot of discussions about decentralization and about, it's so crazy. So there's, first of all, the general counsel at A16Z and another partner of sorts, who basically said the SEC disclosures today confirmed that the SEC thought decentralization was the key difference in the risk profile of certain digital assets as compared to traditional securities, and that it was therefore the appropriate attribute to assess the purpose of Howey, for purposes of Howey. While the revelation is unlikely to help centralized token issuers that conducted ICOs, it is very good for the industry. Since 2018, the industry has followed the SEC's guidance and has focused on building more robust decentralization. The disclosures also prove why calls for more guidance from the SEC are well-founded. Even the SEC is unsure how to define decentralization and why, absent such guidance, congressional action is necessary. Then questions came in about Ethereum and about Stuart Aldoty from Ripple asking, the promise of blockchain technology rests on a dispersed, i.e. decentralized network of participants, but decentralization is a technological standard that doesn't even have a single definition, not a legal standard. When Hinman / the SEC make up decentralization factors to determine if a token is a security, they do so because they want to brush aside the actual legal requirements. Contract for an investment, a common enterprise, etc., as inconvenient legal truths, the actual security measures. But to get back to it, logically speaking, the better that inflation does, the worst, or I'd say the most minimal, the interest rate has to also change, especially towards the upside to basically fix the issue. And the better the United States dollar is doing from all this and how better they can save themselves, theoretically speaking, the worst that Bitcoin should do. It's not always a one-to-one correlation, though. For example, Genevieve shared money supply bigger than inflation. It's not a mystery. Now that the M2 money supply growth is negative, inflation will cool quickly. The new risk could be deflation, actually. And like we've been covering yesterday, for example, Egypt trying to join the BRICS alliance and multiple different countries trying to lower their reliance on the US dollar. Those announcements have not pumped our prices like crazy, which is quite peculiar. Then again, the interest rate. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says it could be a couple years before interest rate cuts. So we're going to be on a little bit of a similar level, which is pretty crazy. Potentially that's what caught the markets off guard and made them bearish. Again, 30 minutes ago, Kenya's president calls for African nations, to come together to ditch the US dollar for trade settlements. It's such an interesting situation. With regards to Ripple / XRP, sometimes I go on Twitter to just like whatever you guys are posting because some stuff is very freaking funny. But John Deaton is going pretty crazy over on Twitter with just facts left and right. One of those things that I found quite interesting is somewhere around here. Here we go. So one of the things that happened was the meeting, right? 2 days ago, I believe, the financial committee came together, and John Deaton basically says, outstanding takedown by Mr. Mike, the Prometheum CEO, who has become part of Gary Gensler's gaslighting campaign. Flood explicitly lays out why Prometheum's claims that their SPBD approval is evidence of a clear path to regulatory compliance are absolute nonsense, and rather their inability to trade any widely traded asset, Bitcoin, Ethereum, is exemplary of why McHenry Thompson is needed for actual regulatory clarity. More things. We got to go a little bit quicker here. So there's, for example, a Hashflow trading firm apparently facing a current exploit with $600,000 lost so far, which I think was pretty strange. Also, some major FUD today, and this might have also caused things to be in a bad spot. Major FUD with regards to Delio. Again, this is one of the most controversial things on the freaking Twitter because we don't know exactly how much they've got. But let me explain. Delio, aka Korean Celsius, this is a response to other people. Do not possess 41,000 Bitcoin. They even claim to have had 4.5 million users when they just launched in 2019. It's highly likely that the number from their parent company, BitThumb, it's absurd. Don't trust these scammers, right? And that's what they've had on their website. But let's take a little bit of a look. So a while ago, there's basically a Korean researcher that found a lot of different things. And you can see Pure TA stating, any idea about this GigaFUD? The largest Korean lending protocol, Delio, supposedly holding 42,000 Bitcoin, 120,000 ETH, and 8 billion plus in altcoins, have halted withdrawals alongside the largest Korean yield service, Haru Invest. Rumors circling that Delio almost closed the deal with Three Arrows Capital last year. And trust me when I say that this is a very big deal. You can see 115,000 views on this right here. It doesn't necessarily seem true. Wait a minute. One like, one quote, 115,000 views. Nobody's liking this? But it was viewed 100,000 times? I guess, I see right now. Just because everybody was pressing this. But that's interesting. Like I was saying, though, yesterday, the entire crypto... It's 13 hours ago, so for you guys, it's still, I guess... For me, it's about 12 o'clock this morning, so to speak. I'm not sure what time it is for you guys, perhaps really yesterday. Like I was saying, though, that was going absolutely crazy over on Twitter. There was a lot of fear. But at the end of the day, we don't really know if they had anything at all. Here it says, Delio halted deposits in the morning. Essentially, Korean BlockFi holds 1 billion in Bitcoin, 200 million in ETH, but claims 8.1 billion in alts. As far as I can tell, a lot of these assets stem from them leveraging their VASP to provide for other apps like Haru, so it's probably not that big a deal. Or because it's in Korean won, right, because that's what it says behind there, it's actually only about 6.4 million in US dollars, which is a lot more realistic, a lot less worse. Oh yeah, like I was also saying, like, some point, if you looked at the Bitcoin price or crypto prices, things were just looking really scary because all of a sudden we are dumping on a crazy cliff. And even though you can see that right now it started at about 4 a.m. My time, which is 2 hours after the FOMC came around, it is kind of going like clockwork, which makes it a little bit strange, right? You can see, I guess, essentially, exactly at 4 o'clock, it just went down all of a sudden about $1,000 or so per Bitcoin or something like that. Yeah, from $25.9 thousand all of a sudden to 24 point something, $9-ish thousand in about an hour, about 50 minutes. All of a sudden, a lot of fear came in. And if you take a look at all the news right here that came out, yeah, Apple rejected none of the Bitcoin app, okay, but not that big a deal. The Federal Reserve kept the interest rate steady, but again, that was 2 hours before that already. Perhaps it was because it was the end of the FOMC meeting, like the projections part that people got bearish all of a sudden of. Hong Kong urges HSBC and Standard Chartered to approve cryptocurrencies. Over in Hong Kong, things are really doing well. You can see how Haru Invest, which, again, I like those people. I met them a couple times. They're nice people, but there's a lot of FUD with regards to that. The Bitcoin app we're talking about, by the way, is Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter's app, I believe. To kind of prove a positive point, I'd say, we're talking here, David Schwartz is going on a little tangent to explain that there's an article that said Ripple does not care whether XRP is sufficiently decentralized. At the end of the day, I'd say they do, but it's a little double standard. What I mean with that is it matters a lot that the XRP ledger is just properly decentralized, but Ripple is a centralized company. And David Schwartz says, nobody who claims XRP or the XRP ledger is not sufficiently decentralized because of Ripple's control has ever described. For any specific threat, users want decentralization to protect against precisely how Ripple could use its supposed control to cause that harm. It cannot be done. And what that means is, let's say somebody were to say the XRP ledger is centralized. just because Ripple has a ton of XRP. How exactly could they, through Ripple's control, mess people up? And you could obviously say, well, they could sell it, but so could any normal market participants that has zero effect on control. And so could somebody with just a lot of money who just came in for like 6 seconds. So that doesn't necessarily prove something. It's more the matter of, if they wanted something to not be voted in, can they always make sure that happens? If they want something to be voted in, could they always make sure that happens? And no, it's not the case. We don't have to go over that for too long. XRP ledger is decentralized. World Chart made a funny remark. Many crypto investors lost money buying Algorand after the SEC chairman Gary Gensler promoted it as an MIT professor, which I thought was kind of funny. We've also seen that the SEC wants 4 months to respond to Coinbase's request for rulemaking, 120 days. So I think that's absurd, but John Dean also quotes out, it's just they want to delay even more and more and more. I'm not sure exactly why they're doing that. In the same time, judge rules in favor of Binance US. No asset freeze imposed by the SEC in their case, probably because it would be even worse for the people. Paul Grewal from Coinbase shared, yesterday we filed a comment letter on the SEC's proposed rule that seeks to expand the definition of exchange to include DEXs. TLDR, this proposal should not be adopted and certainly not before completing the threshold steps for any rulemaking. And again, they keep delaying those basic rules. Why expand the exchange rules to include DEXs when that just doesn't make a lot of sense? Again, you have to note they already tried to change this last year, but it was kind of shut down because it just doesn't make sense. And back then, they tried to kind of sneakily fit it into some other new rules that were coming in. However, like Paul here says, what this would require is for them to really properly define quite a couple of new concepts. Like, what are the differences between a DEX and a centralized exchange? And how do you define that? What are the proponents of that? And that's something that the SEC right now cannot properly do. And especially if you start to think about how they make new rules in the United States, that will be a very, very difficult progress because there's just a regulatory gap. Who exactly decides what is difficult, but also how exactly do you define that and how does everybody agree on that with these very difficult concepts? And a little bit more, Meta Lawman said, it sounds like the hearing in the SEC versus Binance was even worse for the SEC than I heard. According to CoinDesk, the judge hammered the SEC's attorney about their intransigence on the freeze order. The judge was also frustrated by the SEC's inability to answer the simple questions of whether the U.S. customer assets have been transferred overseas. The judge said, it's stunning that I've asked each of you SEC attorneys this. The CoinDesk article is the most thorough report I've seen on the hearing, which you can check out for yourself if you want to. But generally speaking, people are very, very happy with the way in which Binance held themselves together in this initial conversation. When you don't have truth, justice, and honor as your guide as a prosecutor, your lack of faithfulness to the law will become evident. Name a case the SEC hasn't looked bad in, because that's impossible to say because every one of them has looked garbage. Which is evident by the idea that, they've been demonizing almost every single exchange in crypto, but the most important ones, no, they were all left to do their job and to scam and hurt investors. Little side note, apparently Binance applies to deregister a local entity in Cyprus. And apparently Galaxy Digital is moving out of the US amid regulatory uncertainty. I think those were the most important pieces. We've got a little bit more, but I can just sit here for another 6 or 7 hours going through everything. We just know about what wins have been caught for our side, but I've covered all of those. Probably I'll go over it a little bit deeper later, but that's it for right now. Again, if you enjoy these crypto videos, make sure you press that like button. But most importantly, guys, and I'll keep saying this, you got to put the notification bell on because the moment that something crazy happens, you have to be notified. So just press that notification bell on and I'll see you guys again in another crypto video. Most likely later today, I'm like 99% sure I'll post another video with some crazy updates. So stay tuned for that and I'll see you guys again, hopefully later today, like I said.